Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much money you make, no matter how hard you work, financial freedom seems just out of reach? Why credit cards, loans, mortgages, and student debt keep expanding, almost as if designed to keep you perpetually dependent? What if I told you that this isn't a coincidence? That governments, those we trust to manage our money and safeguard our prosperity, might be actively manufacturing debt as a tool to keep citizens under control. Today, we're diving into a story that stretches centuries, involves powerful bankers, secretive financial systems, and a plan so clever it has kept generations of people in a loop of dependency. This is a story about money, power, and control. A story the textbooks don't fully tell. To understand how governments manufacture debt, we first need to go back in time, to a period when money itself was far different from what we use today. Centuries ago, economies were based on tangible assets, gold, silver, and other commodities. Coins held intrinsic value. The idea of borrowing money wasn't widespread. Wealth was accumulated slowly, and governments relied mostly on taxes and resource extraction to fund wars or infrastructure. But change was coming. In the 17th century, a new kind of money emerged, paper money issued by banks. England was among the first to experiment with this, and soon, the Bank of England became a model for government-backed lending. Here's the twist. Governments discovered that instead of taxing their citizens up front, they could borrow money from banks, promising to pay it back later, with interest. Initially, this seemed revolutionary. It funded wars, built infrastructure, and allowed states to expand beyond their immediate resources. But what they didn't tell the public was the hidden cost. Borrowing money didn't just fund projects. It created a cycle where governments would eventually have to borrow more money just to pay off existing debt. And that, my friends, is where dependency begins. Fast forward to the 18th and 19th centuries. Powerful bankers like the Rothschilds in Europe began to wield immense influence over governments through debt. Nations that once relied on their citizens, taxes were now entangled with banks whose power grew faster than any king or parliament. Take the example of Britain. By the early 1800s, the government's annual debt payments to banks consumed more than half of its tax revenue. Wars, including the Napoleonic Wars, were funded not by citizens' wealth alone, but by massive loans structured with compounding interest. Each conflict created new debt, and each debt required new loans to sustain it. Across the Atlantic, the United States mirrored this system. The young nation, desperate to finance wars and infrastructure, fell into the same pattern. The creation of the first and second banks of the United States was met with fierce debate, not just about economics, but about sovereignty. Could a country truly govern itself if it was beholden to private banks? The answer, history shows, was increasingly no. And this is where the story gets darker. The mechanisms of debt weren't accidental. They were designed to concentrate power. Debt in small amounts seems harmless. A mortgage, a loan, or government borrowing to build roads feels necessary. But what happens when debt becomes systemic? When every government project, every social program, every military campaign depends on borrowing money from banks who profit from interest. History gives us chilling examples. Weimar Germany after World War I saw hyperinflation not as a simple economic failure, but as a direct consequence of crushing reparations and government borrowing that could not be repaid. Citizens' savings evaporated overnight, making the population dependent on those who controlled capital. The Great Depression in the United States was exacerbated by banks lending recklessly and governments trapped in debt cycles. Millions lost jobs, homes, and financial security, effectively trapped in a system they could not escape. Debt, when manufactured on a massive scale, isn't just an economic tool, it's a weapon. Governments realized that by controlling the issuance of money and structuring debt to be perpetual, they could influence citizens' behavior, limit social mobility, and consolidate power. Today, the system is even more sophisticated and frightening. National debts across the world are astronomical. As of 2025, the United States alone carries over $35 trillion in national debt, nearly equal to the country's entire GDP. And it's not just government debt. Student loans in the US have surpassed $1.8 trillion, keeping young adults financially tethered well into their 30s and 40s. Credit card debt, mortgages, car loans, each is a link in the chain of dependency. The patterns are eerily consistent. 1. Governments borrow to fund projects. 2. Debt accumulates faster than repayment. 3. Interest compounds, creating pressure to borrow more. 4. Citizens bear the indirect cost through taxes, inflation, or limited economic freedom. Even bailouts, which are often sold as public safety measures, reinforce the cycle. Banks and corporations are saved, while ordinary citizens continue to work to pay off a system that benefits the powerful. The consequences of this debt manufacturing are visible worldwide. Economic inequality widens because those who issue loans grow wealthier while the borrowers sink further into dependence. Political leverage increases for elites who can influence government policy through financial means. Intergenerational debt becomes a norm, with children inheriting the financial obligations of parents borrowing. Take Greece during the 2010 debt crisis. The government's dependence on international loans forced harsh austerity measures that crippled public services and caused mass unemployment. Citizens were left to shoulder the burden, while banks and creditors remained largely insulated. In essence, the system creates a feedback loop. More borrowing leads to more control, which leads to more borrowing, and so on. Throughout history, there have been attempts to escape debt cycles. Some succeeded briefly, others failed spectacularly. Debt jubilees in ancient Mesopotamia erased debts periodically to prevent societal collapse. But these were temporary fixes. The U.S. Glass-Steagall Act of 1933 attempted to separate commercial and investment banking to reduce risk, but it was repealed in 1999, opening the door to the 2008 financial crisis. Modern stimulus packages during recessions often stabilize economies temporarily but usually increase national debt in the process. The problem isn't that governments borrow, it's that borrowing has become the primary tool for managing societies. Without structural reform, the cycle repeats. You might be wondering, how do modern governments manufacture debt so effectively? Here are some key mechanisms. 1. Fiat currency and central banks. Unlike gold-backed currency, fiat money can be printed at will. Governments borrow from central banks or private institutions, promising repayment with interest that often exceeds the economy's growth. 2. Bailouts and stimulus programs. Public money is used to rescue failing institutions, creating moral hazard and ensuring dependency. 3. Inflationary policies. By controlling the supply of money, governments can indirectly devalue citizens' savings while maintaining debt obligations. 4. Complex financial instruments. Derivatives, bonds, and swaps allow governments to mask debt, shift liabilities, and extend repayment periods, keeping the public unaware of the true scale. The result? Citizens are always behind the curve, paying off debt they often don't fully understand, while governments and banks maintain control. This is not just a story about abstract numbers. The system affects you, your family, and future generations. Student loans keep young adults tied to jobs they don't choose. Mortgages and credit cards trap families in cycles of payment. Inflation erodes purchasing power, silently transferring wealth from ordinary people to financial elites. In other words, the system is designed to make dependence normal and financial independence an exception. 3. Clear takeaways. 1. Debt is not accidental, it's strategic. Governments and banks have refined borrowing and lending to create cycles of dependency that benefit elites. 2. History repeats itself. From Weimar Germany to the 2008 crisis, the patterns of debt accumulation and social control are consistent across centuries. 3. Awareness is your first defense. Understanding how debt is manufactured helps you make informed financial choices, resist unnecessary loans, and seek independence. The truth is uncomfortable. The global debt machine is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. As economies grow more interconnected and complex, citizens' financial dependence may intensify. The question isn't just whether governments will continue to manufacture debt. but whether we, as individuals, will recognize the pattern and choose a different path. Will future generations inherit freedom or another cycle of perpetual dependence? If this story shocked you, it's time to take action. Educate yourself, question financial systems, and explore ways to protect your wealth. Hit the like button if you learned something new today, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into hidden systems of power, and share this video with friends who need to understand the truth about debt. Remember, knowledge is the first step toward freedom. The more we understand how systems are designed, the better we can navigate them. And maybe, just maybe, break the cycle.